comedy, and of course, a #1 hit on the recording charts.
I wrote Carol a fan letter when I was a senior in high school.
In the early 2000s, long before all this, Vicki had launched something unexpected, a talk show. The Vicki Lawrence Show premiered in 1992 as a daytime blend of humor, real-life conversations, and that easy, neighbor-next-door warmth she never had to fake. She didn't yell, she didn't stir drama, she didn't chase shock value. She just talked. And audiences trusted her for it. But behind the pastel sets and audience claps, the pressure was ruthless. Producers pushed for bigger moments, louder guests, messier stories. Vicki resisted. She wanted honesty, not chaos. Ratings dipped. Executives panicked. After one season, they canceled it. She walked away hurt but proud. She had refused to compromise her voice for noise. In 2001, she found herself facing a different kind of audience, one that couldn't yell "We love you, Mama," across a parking lot. She began performing Vicki Lawrence and Mama, a two-woman show, a traveling comedy production where she switched back and forth between herself and Mama live on stage. It became a cult favorite across the country. Fans who had aged with her brought their kids, and their kids brought their kids. Generations laughed together as Mama insulted the world with a cigarette in one hand and her opinions in the other. It was simple, pure, and exactly what she loved: live energy, no rewrites, no network politics. Then came 2011. Her hives returned, worse than before. She felt burning under her skin, swelling that kept her up nights. She feared she'd have to quit performing altogether. But this time she didn't pray it away. She spoke openly about chronic idiopathic urticaria, becoming a national advocate. She partnered with medical researchers and foundations, urging people not to suffer in silence. Her voice, years after comedy fame, suddenly carried weight in a new world: health, awareness, survival. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. As years passed, Vicki settled quietly into a life she'd earned. Guest roles on Hannah Montana, Yes, Dear, and Laverne and Shirley sprinkled her resume. Disney Channel kids saw her as Aunt Debbie, while longtime fans still saw her as Mama. She existed in two timelines at once: the firecracking sitcom legend and the soft-spoken grandmother figure. She didn't fight it. She embraced it. Then 2020 hit. The pandemic shut down theaters, tours, studios. For the first time since she was 18, Vicki Lawrence wasn't performing. No lights, no audience, no scripts. Just silence. But she didn't disappear. She went online, hosting small live streams, telling behind-the-scenes stories, answering questions fans had waited decades to ask. Thousands tuned in. Mama's voice, even through a webcam, still cracked people up. Grief, healing, loss, laughter, they all wrapped around her in the years that followed. And by the time 2025 arrived, she wasn't just a comedian or a sitcom icon. She was history. Living, breathing history. A woman who had survived fame, motherhood, war zones, illnesses, heartbreak, mentorship, betrayal, and resurrection more times than Hollywood could count. At 76, walking onto the Palm Royale set beside Carol Burnett again felt like walking back into a room she'd left unfinished. But this time she wasn't the timid teenager who giggled during rehearsal. She wasn't the sketch show newcomer afraid of getting replaced. She wasn't the singer terrified of losing her voice. She walked in steady. Weathered. Whole. And for the first time in decades, she and Carol didn't need scripts, apologies, or network deals to find their rhythm. They just needed each other. Two women who had shaped American comedy, separately and together, finally sharing a screen again. Not as mentor and protege, but as equals. And as the cameras rolled, something unmistakable happened. A lifetime came full circle. As Melissa Gilbert continued to open up, she revealed another layer of truth that many longtime fans never knew. Hollywood, with all its glamour, had also placed invisible expectations on young actors, expectations that deeply affected both her and Patty Duke. Melissa explained that growing up in the spotlight meant constantly battling the pressure to be perfect. According to her, Patty Duke carried similar burdens for decades. Behind her confident smile, Patty was often struggling with emotional challenges, demanding schedules, and the harsh realities of fame. Melissa admitted that understanding this, years later, helped her see their clashes in a completely new way. What once felt personal now appeared as a result of overwhelming stress the two actresses were navigating at the time. Melissa shared that revisiting these memories wasn't easy, but it allowed her to acknowledge the complicated, often misunderstood bond they shared. For the first time, she publicly recognized that both of them were simply trying to survive the demanding world around them. Melissa went on to explain that with maturity came clarity. The resentment she once held toward Patty Duke slowly faded as she understood the emotional weight Patty had been carrying. She spoke about how age and experience changed everything. The more she learned about Patty's personal struggles, the more she realized her earlier judgments were incomplete. Melissa confessed that at one point she truly believed she hated Patty, but now that emotion feels distant and almost unrecognizable. Looking back, she sees a different reality, two women at different stages of life, trying to navigate fear, ambition, and pressure in their own ways. Melissa revealed that she now feels compassion where she once felt anger, and she wishes they had talked openly when they had the chance. She also emphasized that Patty Duke's legacy deserves respect, both for her achievements and for the challenges she overcame. In this part of her revelation, Melissa turned her reflections into advice for the new generation of actors. She said that if she could speak to her younger self, or to any young performer entering the industry, she would tell them to practice patience, empathy, and self-understanding. According to Melissa, the entertainment business often pits people against each other, sometimes without them realizing it. Stress, competition, and insecurity can twist relationships in painful directions. That's exactly what happened between her and Patty Duke. Her message was simple: don't let pressure make you forget the humanity of the people around you. Melissa believes that if she and Patty had understood each other better, things could have been different. She hopes younger actors learn from her experience so they don't repeat the same emotional mistakes she once made. One of the most emotional parts of Melissa Gilbert's confession was her explanation for why she stayed silent for so long. She admitted that she wasn't ready, not emotionally, and not mentally. For decades, she carried her feelings quietly, unsure how to process them publicly. But turning 61 changed something. She felt a sense of responsibility to finally speak the truth, not to stir controversy, but to bring closure to a story left unfinished. Melissa said she owed it to herself, to Patty Duke's memory, and to the fans who had followed both of their journeys. She clarified that her intention wasn't to expose anyone, but to share what she had learned after a lifetime of reflection. In her words, "It took me this long to understand my own emotions. Only now can I speak about them honestly." As Melissa continued her confession, she surprised many by acknowledging that despite their complicated relationship, Patty Duke had a profound influence on her career. She admitted that watching Patty work, her intensity, her emotional depth, and her commitment, left an imprint on her as a young actor. Melissa described moments on set where she quietly observed Patty, even when they weren't getting along. She realized now that those silent lessons shaped her own approach to acting. She said, "Even if our personal relationship wasn't perfect, I learned from her every day." This revelation highlighted something deeper: sometimes the people who challenge us the most also teach us the most. Melissa then opened up about how many of their conflicts were born from simple misunderstandings. In Hollywood, rumors spread quickly, and young actors often misinterpret each other's actions. Melissa confessed that she misread Patty's seriousness as arrogance, while Patty might have viewed her youthful energy as immaturity. Looking back, Melissa realized that neither of them truly understood what the other was going through. There were emotional wounds, private struggles, and professional pressures they never discussed openly. She said that if they had communicated honestly, many of their painful moments could have been avoided. This section of her story showed how easily relationships can fracture when assumptions replace conversation. Melissa shared a turning point in the story, a moment years later when she saw Patty Duke in an interview discussing her struggles with mental health. For the first time, Melissa understood what Patty had been battling privately. She described sitting alone, watching Patty speak with vulnerability and courage. It shocked her. It humbled her. And it changed her perspective forever. Melissa said, "I judged her without knowing her pain. That's something I carry with me to this day." This realization softened years of resentment and opened the door to empathy. Despite her emotional growth, Melissa admitted that she and Patty never fully reconciled. Time, distance, and the unpredictable paths of life kept them apart. Melissa expressed regret that they didn't have the opportunity to clear the air or mend their broken bond before Patty Duke passed away. She said, "I wish I had one conversation with her as two grown women, without the fear, the pressure, or the misunderstandings." Melissa's voice carried both sadness and acceptance as she shared how unresolved relationships can linger in the heart for decades. Toward the end of her revelation, Melissa shifted to a more hopeful message. She encouraged people to seek forgiveness, not only from others, but from themselves. She said carrying resentment is like carrying a heavy stone, it only weighs you down. Melissa explained that her journey taught her an important truth: healing often starts when you allow yourself to see the full story, not just your side of it. Her message was heartfelt: if someone hurt you, try to understand their pain too. It won't erase the past, but it might heal your heart. To honor Patty Duke, Melissa asked fans to remember her not for the controversies or the conflicts others highlighted, but for her artistic brilliance. She spoke about Patty's award-winning performances, her groundbreaking roles, and her courage in speaking openly about mental health long before it was accepted. Melissa said that despite everything, Patty Duke remains an icon, one who changed lives, inspired countless performers, and paved the way for future generations. She emphasized, Patty wasn't perfect. None of us are. But her legacy is bigger than any misunderstanding. Finally, Melissa admitted that sharing the truth brought her an unexpected sense of peace. After years of emotional silence, speaking openly helped her release old wounds she didn't know she was still holding. She said, "Telling this story doesn't change the past, but it frees me from it." Melissa hopes that by being honest, she can inspire others to confront unresolved emotions, before it's too late. By the mid-1970s, Vicki Lawrence was no longer just the fresh-faced teen who had snuck into auditions. Fame had fully caught up with her. Her television success on The Carol Burnett Show was solid, her music career had reached dizzying heights with The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, and she was suddenly expected to balance both worlds flawlessly. But the public only saw the smiles, the costumes, the punchlines, they never saw the quiet toll. Vicki's body began to betray her. The chronic hives, once occasional, now became a constant companion. Stress triggered them, but the pressure to perform made every day a potential disaster. Makeup artists and costume designers had to meticulously cover outbreaks before cameras rolled. Every scratch, every flare-up, had to be hidden. But Vicki endured, quietly, like she had learned as a child, holding pain without complaint, because the cameras never stopped. At home, life was equally demanding. Marriage to Bobby Russell had ended painfully, leaving emotional scars that intertwined with professional stress. Vicki understood that fame, in all its brightness, came with shadows, shadows that followed her across stages, sets, and studios. Amid this personal and professional turbulence, a unique opportunity emerged. What had started as a minor sketch character, Mama, a cantankerous Southern matriarch, soon became a cultural phenomenon. But Mama was not just comedic relief, she was Vicki's personal expression of survival, strength, and truth. Vicki poured her own experiences into the character. The bitterness, the sarcasm, the sharp wit, all of it mirrored her own encounters with authority, pressure, and expectation. Mama was not just scripted, she was lived. Every line, every eye roll, every dismissive gesture carried authenticity born from years of navigating a world that often seemed hostile to young women in entertainment. Producers quickly noticed that audiences were responding in a way they had never seen before. Viewers laughed not just at the jokes, but at the truth behind them. Mama's sharp-tongued humor became a mirror reflecting society's absurdities, while also celebrating resilience. Vicki had transformed personal pain into art, and the world took notice. In 1983, Vicki made a bold decision. She was determined to take control of the character she had created. Mama's Family wasn't just a continuation of a sketch, it was an opportunity to expand, deepen, and assert creative control. Vicki refused to allow the show to compromise the integrity of her character. When scripts suggested romantic plots that Vicki felt were inappropriate for Mama, she took action. Walking straight into the writer's room, she demanded revisions. She wasn't asking, she was insisting. The network initially bristled, but Vicki's conviction won out. The backbone of Mama's moral compass was off limits. This decision marked a turning point, not only for the show, but for Vicki herself. She was no longer just performing, she was leading, shaping, and protecting the vision she had fought so hard to create. Behind the scenes, Vicki also acted as peacemaker. The inclusion of strong personalities like Betty White and Rue McClanahan initially caused friction. Vicki invited cast members to dinners, encouraged dialogue, and fostered collaboration. The woman who had once been frozen with fear during rehearsals now commanded authority, respect, and loyalty. Despite her efforts, NBC canceled Mama's Family after just 2 seasons. Ratings, network politics, and executive decisions seemed to overshadow the cultural impact Vicki had created. At the time, she earned $50,000 per episode, a remarkable sum, but the professional disappointment stung. Yet Vicki refused to accept failure. Syndication brought vindication. When reruns aired, audiences responded with the loyalty and laughter the network had underestimated. By 1986, the show reached 130 episodes in syndication, proving that Vicki's instincts were sharper than any executive's spreadsheet. Her persistence had turned an early cancellation into a long-term success story. Even in the midst of this victory, Vicki confronted challenges. Tabloid rumors swirled around her personal life, her marriage to Al Schultz, and her past relationships. Every headline was a test, but she endured quietly. Her humor, her composure, and her commitment to Mama shielded her from the worst of public scrutiny. During this period, Vicki's private life grew increasingly complex. Courtney, her daughter, was born in 1975, followed by her son Garrett in 1977. Both births coincided with grueling taping schedules. Vicki breastfed between scenes, still in costume and wig. Al Schultz, her husband, worked long hours on set as a makeup artist, leaving little time for personal connection. Postpartum depression added another layer of difficulty. Vicki experienced stress hives that flared before tapings. She smiled on camera, but behind the scenes, she crumbled. Few understood the challenges of balancing a newborn, a demanding show, and the expectations of Hollywood audiences. Yet she persevered, learning resilience in a way only someone who had grown up performing under intense pressure could. This duality, on-screen strength and private vulnerability, defined Vicki's career. It made her relatable, authentic, and profoundly human to her audience. Vicki's music career, though short-lived, left an indelible mark. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia became a #1 hit in 1973, cementing her as a multi-talented performer. Her debut album sold over 2 million copies worldwide. But with success came unintended consequences. Her voice developed nodules from constant touring, recording, and performing, damage that nearly ended her music career. Raised in Christian Science, she resisted medical intervention, relying on prayer alone. Eventually, she had no choice but to seek treatment. These experiences underscored a recurring theme in Vicki's life. Talent and determination alone were never enough. Survival often required compromise, adaptation, and humility. By the late 1970s, the public adoration Vicki enjoyed came with risks. She received hundreds of fan letters, some innocent, others disturbing. A stalker once broke into her Los Angeles hotel room, leaving her shaken and fearful. Security handled the immediate danger, but the psychological impact lingered. This period illustrated a broader truth about celebrity: public attention can amplify both joy and vulnerability. Vicki realized that behind every applause, every gold record, and every magazine cover, there existed an undercurrent of risk, loss of privacy, and emotional exhaustion. She learned early that survival in Hollywood demanded emotional armor alongside talent. As Vicki grew older, so did Mama. The character evolved from a sharp-witted sketch persona into a multidimensional figure that reflected both humor and vulnerability. The 1982 Onionist special tested this transformation. Vicki performed with such intensity that she slapped Harvey Korman in one take, a moment that initially panicked CBS executives. Yet the audience responded with laughter and praise, proving that Mama's voice, raw and uncompromising, resonated deeply. Mama's evolution mirrored Vicki's personal growth, a blend of toughness, authenticity, and resilience. It showed viewers that comedy could carry emotional weight, and that the loudest laughs often come from truth. In the 2000s and 2010s, Vicki reinvented herself. She became an advocate for chronic idiopathic urticaria patients, sharing her experiences and bringing national attention to a condition few understood. She also launched a cosmetics line on HSN, with products like the Fireball red lipstick becoming iconic. Bold, funny, and unpretentious, her line reflected her personality and resonated with women who admired her humor and authenticity. Vicki continued acting in guest roles and voice work, offering her talents in animation and television without the physical strain of live performance. This balance allowed her to remain active creatively while protecting her health. After decades, reconciliation with Carol Burnett occurred in 1993, following years of silence. The two women publicly embraced, healing old wounds and acknowledging their shared history. Vicki later joined Carol in 2025 on Palm Royale Season 2, reuniting professionally after more than 40 years. Even in grief, Al Schultz passed in 2024, just months from their golden anniversary. Vicki turned her loss into purpose, advocating for union rights and visibility for makeup artists. Her career, spanning comedy, music, television, and business, became a blueprint for resilience, creativity, and reinvention. At 76, Vicki Lawrence remains a living testament to endurance, humor, and authenticity. Her story is not just about celebrity, it's about surviving immense pressure, navigating complex relationships, enduring physical and emotional pain, and transforming all of it into a legacy of laughter, creativity, and empowerment. She has crafted a unique place in American culture, bridging generations of fans, inspiring performers, and showing that true strength lies in vulnerability, persistence, and the courage to remain authentic, no matter the stage. By the mid-1980s, Vicki Lawrence had experienced what many young stars never do. She had seen both the dizzying heights of success and the depths of professional disappointment. Yet, she refused to let setbacks define her. The cancellation of Mama's Family by NBC, initially a crushing blow, became the impetus for reinvention. Syndication brought vindication, and Vicki realized that long-term impact was far more meaningful than immediate approval. She described how the repeated cycle of rejection and recognition taught her resilience. Every closed door, she said, was simply redirecting me to the one that mattered. Her persistence wasn't just about career survival, it became a life philosophy. Each sketch, performance, and recorded song carried the weight of lessons learned from the early struggles at the Carol Burnett Show and beyond. Life off-camera was no less demanding. Raising Courtney and Garrett while filming multiple shows forced Vicki to redefine priorities. The challenges of motherhood, compounded by postpartum depression and relentless work schedules, tested her in ways that audiences never saw. She learned that managing fame wasn't just about public image, it was about creating stability for herself and her children. Between scenes, she found small moments of quiet, reading bedtime stories, making meals, or simply holding her children. These moments reminded her that behind the lights, cameras, and applause, family was her anchor. Vicki described this period as a balancing act of extreme skill and patience, where the boundaries between personal and professional life were constantly blurred. Yet she remained committed to both, proving that dedication to craft and family could coexist, even in the most challenging circumstances. The character of Mama evolved far beyond its origins as a sketch on the Carol Burnett Show. Vicki infused every aspect of Mama with authenticity drawn from her own life, her struggles, humor, and survival instincts. The cantankerous yet deeply human matriarch became an icon, bridging generations of viewers. Vicki insisted on maintaining Mama's moral integrity. When scripts threatened to romanticize inappropriate storylines, she intervened, ensuring that Mama remained grounded. She explained that this wasn't control for the sake of ego, it was protecting a character that had grown into a symbol of resilience. Audiences responded to the depth behind the comedy. Mama wasn't just funny, she was real. The blend of sharp wit, emotional truth, and lived experience made the character resonate long after the initial broadcast, solidifying Vicki's place in television history. While Vicki's music career skyrocketed with hits like The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, it came with unforeseen consequences. Her vocal cords, strained from relentless touring and recording, developed nodules. Pain became a daily reality, yet Vicki performed with unwavering professionalism. Her upbringing in Christian Science influenced her approach to medicine, often delaying proper treatment. The resulting stress and physical strain underscored a recurring theme in her life: success rarely comes without sacrifice. Despite these challenges, she remained determined to perform, embodying a work ethic forged in the crucible of early television pressures. Fame brought both admiration and danger. Vicki received countless fan letters, some heartfelt, others invasive. An alarming incident involved a stalker breaking into her Los Angeles hotel room. Though security intervened, the experience left her shaken and acutely aware of the vulnerability that accompanies celebrity. She reflected on how public attention amplified not just joy, but fear. Fans adored her performances, but she often carried the silent burden of navigating fame while protecting herself and her family. These experiences taught her vigilance, discretion, and the importance of maintaining personal boundaries in a world obsessed with visibility. Later in her career, Vicki used her platform to advocate for others. After decades of dealing with chronic idiopathic urticaria, she publicly discussed her condition, raising awareness for patients nationwide. Her advocacy extended to supporting makeup artists, highlighting the often invisible labor behind Hollywood's glamour. She also launched a cosmetics line on HSN, combining her love for performance with business acumen. Products like the Fireball Red lipstick reflected her personality, bold, fun, and unapologetically authentic. Vicki demonstrated that reinvention was possible at any stage, blending her artistry with entrepreneurship and advocacy. One of the most emotional chapters in Vicki's story was her reconciliation with Carol Burnett. After years of silence, the two women embraced publicly in 1993, bridging decades of personal and professional distance. This reunion wasn't just symbolic, it represented healing, closure, and mutual respect. For Vicki, it affirmed a lifetime lesson: even fractured relationships could find repair with time, understanding, and empathy. The experience influenced how she approached subsequent collaborations, including her return alongside Carol on Palm Royale Season 2 in 2025. Tragedy continued to shape Vicki's life. Al Schultz, her husband of decades, passed away in 2024, just months short of their golden anniversary. Vicki faced profound grief, yet she channeled her emotions into advocacy and public awareness. Through interviews and campaigns, she highlighted the contributions of behind-the-scenes workers in Hollywood. The loss, though deeply personal, became a catalyst for positive change in the industry, demonstrating her enduring resilience and commitment to the community around her. Looking back on a career spanning more than 5 decades, Vicki Lawrence reflects on the intersection of comedy, hardship, and personal growth. From her early days sneaking into auditions as a teenager, to performing live for thousands, to becoming a cultural icon through Mama's Family, she has consistently demonstrated that laughter can coexist with pain, and that humor often arises from survival. Vicki emphasizes that her journey is defined not only by accolades, charts, or ratings, but by the lessons learned along the way: persistence, compassion, and authenticity. Every challenge, whether professional, personal, or physical, has contributed to the woman and performer she became. Mama's Family, in syndication and cultural memory, remains a touchstone of American comedy. Audiences connect with the raspy-voiced, sharp-tongued matriarch because she embodies truth, resilience, and unapologetic humor. Vicki's insistence on creative control, her ability to balance authority and empathy, and her willingness to push boundaries all contributed to Mama's enduring appeal. She turned a small sketch character into a full-bodied icon, ensuring that generations of viewers would recognize the depth behind the laughter.